Hi, Nicolai.
Hi Moses, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good.
Where are you talking to us from today?
I'm in Italy, just outside Verona.
Is it sunny today or how's the
It's
weather?
not that sunny actually.
No, here the sun keeps on coming and disappearing. But
Yeah. I mean, yesterday actually ordered a Christmas tree, so getting towards Christmas for sure.
exactly, you're getting into winter.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for accepting to be with us today. I really appreciate it. Our podcast is about two things, diversity and education. And I think you're one of the few people that I know from afar, but that I would like to know more about, that embodies diversity and education. I would like you to introduce yourself because I'm sure you would introduce yourself much better than I would do.
No, happy to, and I mean, great to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
I think the topics are extremely important. And I mean, me personally, my introduction, I'm ethnically half Danish, half Chinese, born in Brazil, moved around. I think I've lived in maybe 11 or 12 countries by now. So definitely think quite globally. And yeah, living in Italy with my wife and two dogs.
Cool. All right. You wrote a book, and that was actually what really caught my attention. I know you from many years back when we went to the same university together. So we stayed in touch on social media and stuff. And I saw that you wrote a best-selling book about ambition.
Yep.
I'm an ambitious person myself. Sometimes it came at the expense of my private life, but sometimes it was a good thing. I would like you to, the book is called Return on Ambition. I'd like you to help us just understand the name, the title, and then go into the book a little bit. What is it about? What does it focus on?
Yeah, the book came out about a year ago, early 2021, and it was 6 years in the making. And the title, Return on Ambition, came from a bit of a play on words, like you have return on investment, return on assets. What my co-author and I found is that the vast majority of people would characterize themselves as ambitious. Perhaps not so surprising, but also the vast majority, actually more than half, struggle with their ambitions. You mentioned a little bit around the private life. So return on ambition for us is a bit of a provocation. Your ambition is often your biggest investment in life, whether that's in the time you spend, your energy, resources, money. How critically do you think about your return? How critically do you think and actually measure what you're getting back? And then if you're not happy with that return, actually making adjustments along the way. So that's the essence of the title, Return on Ambition, return on all this energy and time that you're putting into your ambition.
Right. Do you consider yourself to be an ambitious person?
I do. I do. It's definitely been a lifelong part of me, something which has helped me. It's a strength, but it's also gotten in the way a couple of times. And that was also one of the things that triggered the passion to write a book about ambition, because I recognize it. It's been a very personal journey. And early on, I often had a lot more questions around why am I feeling exhausted? Why am I on the verge of burning out? Why is my ambition actually getting the better of me? And I didn't really have the answers. So that was very much part of me wanting to look at the topic and talk to people who are ambitious, talk to people how they manage it, and come up with some guidance for other ambitious individuals.
And how did you come up with the idea of writing a book? What made you? Obviously, you co-authored it with somebody else. Yeah. Can you tell us about what pushed you to sit down and write it?
Yeah, absolutely. My co-author is also called Nicolai. Interestingly, he's also Danish. And we were both living in Dubai. This is maybe, not sure, 8 years ago or so. And we were working together. I was with a consulting company called McKinsey. He was an external advisor, facilitator for McKinsey. And we were working together on client projects, on leadership development. But we also became very quickly good friends, and were meeting for coffee and speaking. And one day we met for coffee, and we were talking about a bit of a macro view about the state of leadership development. And what struck us was leaders have access to incredibly expensive sometimes tools. They have a lot of training, they have coaches for their personal development. And we were thinking, how might we bring the tools of personal development to a much broader audience, in a way democratize developmental coaching. And that was the idea that we played with. And then the form of a book came as a way to do that. You know, a book is not that expensive. And we thought, how might we actually bring some of our experience into a book and then share it with people? And then we ultimately landed on ambitious people because we found that ambitious people share unique challenges in the fact that they're ambitious. And also it's a bit of a white space. There's not that much written on ambition on the market.
Yeah. What do you think, how do we become ambitious? Is it something, you know, as a father, I'm very interested as well in this podcast to talk to successful people to make sure that I can install the right attitude in them at an early age. Yeah. Can we create an ambitious person? What happens? Like, how do we become ambitious? It's something we can teach our kids, or how did it work out for you?
Yeah.
Do you come from an ambitious background, from an ambitious household?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think ambition, everyone has human needs. I think humans have an innate desire to do something with their life. We have needs, you know, there's old research around Maslow's needs, and whether you agree with exactly how it's formulated or not, I think the point is that we need security, we need physical safety, we need social acceptance, and different types of needs. And at a higher level, we also have a need for making a difference, having a need for purpose in life. And that's something I think is innate to the vast majority of humans. It's often about, first of all, filling the kind of basic needs. If you don't have a stable foundation, if you're not secure, it can be hard to then devote energy to higher level needs. So there is some type of hierarchy for sure, like Maslow laid out. But then I think it's about helping people find what that thing is that they want to do with their life.
All right. I actually I've only read the first chapter of your book, which is very interesting. But what really caught my attention at the beginning of the book, I'm going to read it was your dedication, your book dedication. And you wrote to Mama, Baba, and Natasha. Correct me if I'm wrong, with the pronunciation. Our family has been the bedrock of everything I do. Thanks for your unconditional love, support, and encouragement. Can you unpack a little bit these three words: unconditional love, support, and encouragement, and family setting, and how can we link to an ambitious but yet fulfilled, happy person? Because I understand from you that happiness and ambitious, you can get in the way of each other. Can you tell us more about the dedication of your book?
Yeah, it's to my mom and dad and sister.
Yeah.
And I feel very blessed that I grew up in a household that showed unconditional love and allowed me to become anything I wanted to become. So of course there was a push towards do well in school, take your studies seriously, work hard. But beyond that, whatever I wanted to become, I could try. At one point, I wanted to be a professional football player, soccer, until I was 18. After that, I went to university. I had no idea what I wanted to become, whether it's politician, business leader, entrepreneur, work in an NGO. But I never once was pushed in a specific direction. And I think that was incredibly important because I felt a lot of freedom. And with the unconditional part, encouragement, support, it also meant that the love I got and the encouragement I got wasn't contingent on becoming something specific. And that was incredibly important. It gave me a lot of safety and courage to try different things.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And from a leadership point of view, how can leaders, I see leaders, can leaders function in a way that parents function with their kids in a company setting, the company culture or the corporate culture? How can we encourage our employees without putting too much pressure on them that might impact their lives later on?
Yeah, leadership is a balance. There is a task orientation, there's a people orientation. Like there are things that a company has to do, and that's just expected. Of course, the employee is coming and getting a salary. So it is that balance, and that's where the leader, I think, needs to navigate it well. I would say, my experience, leaders are often very good at the task part. I mean, have been, trained, or classic management education is all about KPIs and learning how to set goals and achieve goals. And, typically that's the first thing you learn when you become a manager. I think what you have to balance it with is that the people orientation. And it doesn't mean going soft. It's not about not doing hard things. There's actually a book coming out by a friend called Rasmus called Compassionate Leadership, doing hard things in a compassionate way. So the point of compassionate leadership is not that you don't make hard decisions. You're in a business, you have to still make certain decisions that are difficult for the employees, but you can do it in a way that's very compassionate. You can do it in a way that takes the whole employee into consideration. And I think that's sometimes what's missing. You mentioned the word culture. Corporate cultures, if they're not careful, can become very mechanistic, right? We have goals, we have to achieve them, and we kind of forget that there's a human on the other side. So for me, it's an and. It's not you do one or the other. It's you have to combine them.
Yeah, exactly. And I can see a lot in common between parenthood and being a leadership in a corporate culture, because yes, sometimes, I want my kids, for example, to learn reading, or they have maybe homework, but at the same time, you want to make sure that the goals are not, you are not achieved at the expense of the happiness of your kid. And in that case, in the corporate setting, we need to be compassionate and to be able to, keep in mind their well-being, psychological well-being, right?
Yeah.
In the book as well, you talk about frenemies of ambition. Can you talk a little bit about them? I like, what is a frenemy to start with?
Yeah, frenemy. It's not a new concept, but it's not been used in this way before. Frenemy is a friend and an enemy of ambition. What was interesting was when we studied ambitious people, and we studied what both made them successful and also what got in the way, what made them not achieve their goals or not be in balance or fail. There were very common behavioral patterns, very common patterns of how they thought about the world. And that's where we came up with these 7 frenemies. So to give you an example, competitiveness, strong independence, a lot of confidence, the ability to work super hard. I mean, these are fantastic attributes of ambition, right? Because you're ambitious, you can do these things. The problem is when they become overpowering and they begin to manage you. And for many ambitious people, that's when they had their aha moments, or why they kept digging the same hole, because their frenemy would get in the way.
Yes, exactly. Do you think we live now? I think the rest of the world, the whole world is quite modern. How would you say, the westernized? So I'm just going to talk about the whole world, not only about the West, because I think now Dubai is the corporate culture is pretty much the same everywhere. Do you think we are, this successful hustle, success and business and the entrepreneurship? Do you think what we hear on social media, on traditional media, do you think that adds to the stress of ambitious people? And how can we protect ourselves of this, just, sleep 5 hours a day, sleep 3 hours a day, and just, go get it,
Yeah. I absolutely, I recognize it. I definitely don't subscribe to the sleep, 5 hours a day. I think your body has a natural equilibrium and you have to respect that. I think hustling is important. It shows a desire, and you break down barriers when other people might give up. So hustling as a mindset is important. But I think what's critical is that your ambition is true to who you are as a person. And you're not pursuing something which is based on societal expectations or based on what you think it would make you happy. Because then what often happens is people, they achieve a certain goal, whether it's monetary or something else, and they realize that they're happy for a little moment and then they go back to not being happy. So ambition for me it's incredibly important that it's really genuine, authentic, and that people spend time thinking about what that is. And you mentioned the social media. I think the risk is that you start getting very influenced by, flashy things and things that at the end of the day won't really make you happy.
Yeah, the bling bling, the Lamborghinis and stuff.
Yeah.
Nicolai, I've seen you've lived in Dubai, so Middle East. You've lived in New York. you're Danish, Chinese. If we were to compare the four cultures, if we were to talk about ambition in America, Scandinavia versus Dubai and China, do you see what are the similarities and if there's any difference between like ambition? Is there a healthier, where is the healthier or the healthiest approach of how one should be ambitious? Anywhere, or it's different from, I don't know, it depends on the person. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak from my experience is not backed up by a scientific study.
Yeah.
I think first of all, ambition is very personal. So I can definitely see differences across the country. So in general, Scandinavia is more egalitarian and more collectivist in terms of the economy. And there is, all else equal, less of a, let's say, societal expectation to stick out and be different from the rest, as opposed to fitting in and being part of a strong collective. While the US is, to a large extent, very capitalist in terms of economy. And there's a lot of encouragement for people to hustle, to take the initiative. So at a super macro level, I would say that that's a big difference. I would also say that individual differences is ultimately what is, it comes down to the individual. So you'll find super ambitious people in Denmark, ambitious by how we might characterize ambitious, and then less so in the US. That I wouldn't focus too much on society. I would focus more about the individual definition of success. I think that's what it all comes down to.
Yeah. Although I think maybe society can dictate, or a culture maybe can impact the way you see the world. Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Right. So would you say that Scandinavia or the Scandinavian culture, I'm generalizing a little bit, but obviously, people are different and you cannot generalize, but in terms in big lines, would you say that Scandinavia is more in tune with the book that you've written about ambition? Is it the right approach, as if we were to look at countries as if they were persons?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I haven't thought about that. So ambition, we talk about the people who have a high return on ambition by their own evaluation, and people who self-proclaim to be fulfilled and successful in life. Again, their own perception of it. They balance three things. They balance their levels of achievement, their levels of personal growth and well-being. So achievement, growth, and well-being. And that I think is the key, because ambition, I don't believe in work-life balance, for example. Balance is important, but I don't.
Okay, tell me more about this as well. Super interesting, because everybody talks about it, right?
I know, everyone talks about it, and it's a pretty old concept, actually. Balance is important, but work and life is two, I think, the wrong buckets you need to balance. I think it's about balancing achievement, growth, and well-being. Because if you're ambitious in terms of a career type goal, if you're an entrepreneur, you're very passionate about your job. You actually love your job, perhaps. If even people who work less hours, let's say a teacher could just be super excited about teaching and they love it and they're passionate, and their achievement part is a big part of who they are as an identity, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I think it's a little bit false to say just literally cut down the number of hours you work and have more time to life, because it's I think the wrong way. Achievement, growth, and well-being. Ambitious people, the challenge is that they want to do all three, and they often want to do too much, and they often can't balance it together.
Right. So we shouldn't be talking about work-life balance, because maybe what makes you happy would be working a little bit more or talking more about your work. I'm talking about this because I'm in France. I'm based in France right now. I'm talking to you from France, and in the French culture, it's not really fully accepted yet to talk about entrepreneurship, to talk about money, and saying that you work maybe in the weekend is not necessarily a good thing. So sometimes I feel like doing what you like might be judged. So maybe we should not, rather than saying work-life balance, I'm trying to understand what you just said. We should say, is that person happy doing what he or she is doing? Right? And we should support that attitude.
Yeah, exactly. And then in general, in broad strokes, those three things need to be balanced over the long term, because when they're not, that's in all our research and the case studies we did, if they're not in balance, that's where people then start having these dips, and they actually start either burning out or they feel like their life is not where they want it to be, right? If your growth goes down, you definitely start to stagnate. If your well-being goes down, that's quite often if people work too much. But also if your achievement goes down, you get bored on the job. You feel like I'm not actually doing what is making a difference in the world. So each of these three things are important.
Yeah. So you want to balance the things that matter to you, which is, health, psychological health, physical health, and the love, or your personal life, like whatever matters to you and as a person. That's what you balance.
Yeah, those three things have a number of components that make them up. So there's more beneath the surface of achievement, growth, and well-being. So for example, well-being, you mentioned physical health, definitely also emotional health, that you're feeling like you're part of a community, you have a belonging, you're accepted for who you are. But achievement also goes beyond what you might call like career goals. I mean, achievement also is about working on goals that are personally meaningful to you, that you're intrinsically motivated towards, that you've set yourself. And that's why your job actually might, if you have a job you don't like, your achievement score might be very, very low.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me more about, thank you for this. It's very interesting. I would like, that actually takes me to, I want you to go a few years back after when you finished Copenhagen Business School. What was your ambition back then? Or what were your goals back then? Where did you go?
Yeah.
And looking back in hindsight, did you do the right thing in terms of ambition?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I finished, graduated Copenhagen Business School with the master's when I was 24. And I joined McKinsey in consulting. So my ambition when I joined was to become partner. And that was both because it's a very noble thing. I mean, in a consulting, partner is you could say a very important level to make. A partner in a company, you can really start doing things that you're really passionate about, building things and so forth. But I would also say that at 24 and actually not having worked in consulting, there was no real basis for that ambition. I mean, I didn't actually know to what extent I would love the work 6 years or 8 years down the line. I mean, I had a good understanding of what the work was, and I thought I would love it. But it's a little bit naive, if you will, now that I think about it, to start and say, become partner is what I want to do. It's the right thing for me. So that was my ambition. But that definitely started changing over time because I learned more about myself and what I wanted to do.
Right. And then you graduated, you joined McKinsey, and where did you go? Was it in Denmark or?
Dubai. So I joined directly in Dubai.
So right now, apparently, according to the statistics, more and more French people are moving to Dubai and living, and probably in other countries around the West. So there's an influx of people going to Dubai. Why do you think people move to Dubai? Like, especially from the West? Traditionally, people leave the Middle East and go to Dubai. I know there is money, but beyond the money, why do they move? What is in the culture that encourages people attracts people to them?
I mean, Dubai for me is one of the most global, open-minded societies in the world. You have Singapore, you have London, New York, all very global. But Dubai, to some extent, is even more international when you look at the people, because a huge part, 90% of the population are expats, or non-local. And what I find is that the people who come there maintain a part of their personal culture and identity, and they're very proud of it because there's very much less discrimination in my experience there than in other places. So you have people from Senegal, Australia, Italy, Canada, all coming together in a melting pot and just appreciating who they are and their cultures and wanting to learn about that with a real curiosity and open-mindedness. So that was a big part of, I was in Dubai for more than almost 8 years, just feeling very comfortable in that society and meeting people who expanded my understanding of the world.
Do you think it's, by that token, do you think it's important for companies around the world to take the example of Dubai? is it good for as a corporate culture? Is diversity something, you know, I can imagine that it's something good, but how can we export that culture, especially, you know, to Europe, for example, or Denmark?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I mean,
I'm very aware
Dubai,
of, there's a lot of, you know, they say what you just said, it's very good to celebrate and
yeah.
cherish diversity. But I feel like in Europe, we still have this issue of, you know, last time I checked in Sweden, for example, there's a lot of people like being white with a Swedish name would get you twice as much possibilities of getting a job than somebody else.
Yeah, yeah.
How can we?
It's an important topic for sure. I mean, Dubai, just one more thing that I think was interesting, they have a Ministry of Tolerance, something around
Really?
that
Yeah, I
name.
didn't
And
know
it's just a very forward-thinking view of we want to create a society that is tolerant, right? That's
that.
open, that's inclusive. I would agree that there are definitely pockets of Europe that, I mean, you can just read the news where people like visibly don't like foreigners, like that actually happens sometimes, and it's very sad. So to answer your question, openness and tolerance is fundamental. I think it unfortunately doesn't always happen, both at a societal level, but also at a company level.
Yeah.
Often people, they fear a bit what they don't know, or they don't like differences because it's just new for them.
Yeah. And as a leader, when you recruit somebody, if you were to, if you needed a team to work on something, or if you were a business owner, how do you recruit, or how would you recruit people? Like, obviously, you know, would you try to have an ethnic or a cultural balance in the company, or would you only focus on their skills, professional skills, or is it a combination of both, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. It's I think the trend is more towards skills at a macro level, because the type of work we're doing is getting compartmentalized in a very, very, you know, smaller and smaller chunks, and more people are freelancing, and whatever you need to do, whether it's launch a website or build an app or revamp a product, like you can do a lot of it actually with not a permanent team, or with agile teams, or even within a company, people coming together for a certain period of time and working together on this specific initiative, which means that it's about the specific skills that people can bring to the table for that project, and then you disband and go to the next project.
Right.
So I would focus, at least at a macro level, that skill piece I think is extremely important, but the other part is also super critical. I mean, you have to give everyone equal opportunity. So for me, diverse teams have been shown to be more creative, because you have different points of view and different experiences and so forth. So that's critically important. It's a balance, you know, would you want to hire it only for diversity? Probably not, right? I think it's about equal opportunity, and about just being aware of what are the skills, experiences that the different people are bringing to the table.
Yeah. Back to Dubai, do you think that what makes Dubai today was their ambition, the ambition of their leaders? And did they become Dubai at the expense of their own well-being, or okay, let me rephrase this. People living in Dubai, I understand that once you hit the ground there, you're surrounded by successful people everywhere. You see money everywhere. Is it a healthy environment to be living in Dubai in the long run? Like, would you recommend me to move to Dubai with my kids to make sure that they grow up in that environment? Or is it better to grow up in a less ambitious environment before moving there? What do you think?
So Dubai, I mean,
obviously
Dubai has big ambitions. Like, you just look at the growth, right? The things that have happened over the last 20, 30 years. I like to call ambition also things like a dream, right? A dream is an ambition. A vision is an ambition. It's a future state that is different from today that you want to get to. And that's a pretty broad term. That's why when you look at it, the vast majority of people are ambitious. Whether Dubai is the right or wrong one, I think is totally It's totally personal, because having lived in so many countries and in, you know, different continents, Asia, Middle East, Europe, North America, South America, I find that every place has very clear pros and cons, right? There are things I love about Denmark. There are things that I don't like about Denmark. There are things I love about Dubai, things I don't like. Things I love about New York, things I don't like. So it's absolutely, I don't think there's a perfect place, my opinion.
of course.
And I think it's highly individual. You know, if you just look at New York, the pace of New York is extremely high.
Yeah.
Some people love that, and they would get completely bored in, for example, Scandinavia.
Yeah.
Even if you go outside of a capital city, if you want to live in the countryside, the pace of life just is slower.
Right.
Other people would love that nature, pace of life a bit slower, and so forth.
Right.
So Dubai, I don't know. I think it's important going in there with, you know, both eyes open, going there, visiting it, testing it out, seeing if you like what it feels like,
Yeah.
if it's right for you.
Right. Okay. So basically, yeah, it all depends on the person. Like there's no such a thing as the best city to live in or to grow up in.
No, I mean, there are rankings and so forth, but at the end of the day, I think it's what you prioritize in life.
Right. Coaches. I know the book, and actually I find the book to be a very interesting. I'm a big believer in being coached. But to me, being coached, you can be coached by a book as well, not necessarily by a human being. Can you tell me your how you view coaching or mentorship by books and humans as well, like human coaches or books? What's the difference?
Yeah.
And is it necessary to have both, or can we do one thing?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, because the book I mentioned that we started with this aspiration of bringing coaching to the masses, to democratize coaching, and the book actually has 4 self-coaching sessions. So it has 4 specific guided parts where you are meant to sit down and for an hour and reflect, and we give the questions and so forth. Self-coaching. I think there's not that much self-coaching done in a structured way in the book, or in book form. So to answer your question, I think coaching can absolutely be done in a book form, but also the human brings different elements. So let me elaborate a bit. Coaching is a lot about helping you find what's right for you, defining what's important for you, making sense of what seems to be very confusing or conflicting things, and just bring a bit of clarity. So I think a book can definitely get you some of the way there. It can give you perspectives. You can learn from the successes and failures of other people, so you can avoid their mistakes. We hope that when you read Return on Ambition, you have a number of aha moments. You begin to say, wow, I can recognize this pattern of behavior in myself, and I can see how it's helping me and actually getting in the way. So we want people to get aha moments and to get more clarity. And in that sense, they're being coached because they're thinking and coming out, stronger. They're coming out as a new person with more self-awareness. I don't think a book is the only answer. I think if people really want to go deep, you need deeper interventions. You need a skilled coach, and I think that's where the human element. There is no substitute for someone who can truly help you get into areas that you haven't actually explored before.
Right. Do you expect to write a follow-up to the book, or write more material, more books or articles about ambition? Do you think there is more stuff to be explored in the future in terms of this topic?
There is more to explore. I feel like the book hasn't really. I feel like there's more potential in the book in the content. I'd like to, first of all, for example, through this podcast, help people explore their ambition more. I think there's still a lot of work to be done there. Right. But one interesting reflection has also been, because we started the book way before COVID, right. And now COVID happened and many things are changing. I think there's an angle, which is how do companies create an environment to attract ambitious people, to help them thrive, to keep them engaged. So ambition at a company level, I think, is perhaps a topic that I'd like to look into.
Actually, you just made me think of a question that I hadn't prepared as the CEO of my own company and as a leader myself. Sometimes it's hard for me to find the right people. Like, what would be your advice to find the right ambitious people? Like, how can a company attract the right people to them?
What do you mean the right ambitious?
Yeah, well, exactly. Somebody who knows the importance of self-development, who is ambitious, who wants to bring something to an added value, bring something to the table, but who is aware of the importance of self-growth, growing as a person, who wants to constantly learn new things and be a better person. Maybe I'm actually saying that maybe we shouldn't be constantly thinking about this. I don't know, but I don't know if I'm asking the right question right now because I'm thinking out loud. But
Yeah.
how can we bring the best, the most suitable employees? How can we attract them to our company, to our team, or to our project?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what do you think of this question, maybe? Is it the right question to ask, or how
yeah, I can see where you're going, right? You want someone who's fitting in, who's wants to do things better, proactive, self-starter, believes in growth. So my experience is that everyone is, by and large, everyone's ambitious, but I do think that there are different sizes of ambition.
Okay.
So some people are more gung-ho about like the future state they want to get to is radically different from today, for example. It's a big jump, and they want to get there. Other people are more comfortable with like the difference is not that big. I would still say that even when people are super successful, get to old age, I mean, typically there's still something they want to do with their life, right? Like whether that's mentor other people or give back, there's something they want to do. So, but first of all, I think there's a difference in the gap. So one element you could try to determine is what is that difference? What's the level of drive the person wants to go towards? I think second is that there has to be some kind of alignment around what your mission is and how and that's why I think ambition as a concept is important to have in the workplace, because why doesn't a company or leaders ask their employees, like, tell me about your dreams, your life vision, your ambition, like not just on the career side, but on the personal side, on the growth side, who do you want to become? And sometimes people don't even know that because it's a big question and sometimes you don't spend time reflecting on it. But that's where I think marrying those two things, and it's totally okay that the company is just a stepping stone, right? I mean, people, I think the latest statistics is Generation Z will have, 18 jobs and 6 different careers, right? Every 3 years, you're going to move your job, which is not that surprising, right? You and me, we're moving, people we know change jobs every 2, 3, 4 years.
Sure.
So it's okay that it's not like you're here for life and like you need to want to become a VP. Like that's okay, but it's about understanding how does this company and your mission align, is in alignment, and then hopefully you'd be also excited about doing something for the company and learning along the way and so forth.
That's such a valuable advice. Thank you so much. So once we know that the skills, that the person has the right skills, the person's dreams and ambitions need to align and be in alignment with the company's dreams and ambitions, right? Or alignment, or the culture, the corporate culture. There needs to be an alignment between the person's ambitious or dreams and the company's dreams. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think large companies is interesting when you work on talent management. Retention is a hot topic, keeping people in job, and sometimes there's even a mindset of we need to do everything we can to keep people here. We don't want to lose people. It makes sense. If you lose people, it's loss of skills and it's expensive to replace and so forth. But it's sometimes asking the wrong question. I mean, why you should almost expect to lose people. It's much more about understanding how can I understand my workforce better? How can I understand their dreams? Right. And then making those fits. And then it's okay if people leave, and instead of it being like a shock every time, it's more about we kind of knew it, right? This person joined us with a dream to set up their own company in 3 years, and this was for them about building a lot of experience and so forth. We're going to help them, and of course they're going to work hard to in return for, so you know what I mean? It's a different different mindset.
By listening in the first place, you be more prepared for that person to leave. Like when the time comes, you will be prepared and you know what to do. But that's why it's important to listen to their goals and dreams in the first place. I
think so. I think it's a much more modern way of looking at the workforce, the contract between the employer and employee. Like the contract is changing. Employees are becoming much more part-time, gig workers, you know?
Yeah, we don't have no longer have this culture of, okay, I get into a work and I'm staying there for 30 years, like our parents' generations, or even 10 years. So nowadays, the change can be every couple of years. Where can we find your book, Nicolai?
Return on Ambition, it is available, I think, in all major retailers online, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and so forth.
Yeah. Is there an audio version as well of it?
There's an audiobook on Audible, and then there's a Kindle as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Did I ask all the questions that do you think there is a question that I haven't asked you? Professional or personal question that you would have liked me to ask? Finally.
I appreciate the question. It's always fun when I don't have them, before we just have a conversation. I think it's a great conversation. Perhaps just a challenge to the listeners, think now that you've heard this, what do you want to do differently? How might you reflect on your ambition and ask yourself some tough questions? Yeah.
So that would be your final advice to anybody, like regardless of their age. Yeah.
Self-awareness is extremely important, and taking time to reflect is extremely important.
Great.
I would encourage everyone to do that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with us. I have a feeling that we'll talk again, maybe in the near future, about ambition, about corporate cultures, about diversity, maybe about your next book.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.